Thank you very much, darling, for your kind introduction, and thank you all for your warm welcome as well. I'm really excited to be here and have the chance to share some thoughts with this august gathering of members of both ISACA and the BCS. Now, as you know, I've been asked to talk to you today about my view on IT security and compliance, and so I'd really like to start by setting the scene for you a little bit and giving you some information about the company I work for and my role there as Compliance Director. MediaOcean is a technology company, and as you can see, we like to see ourselves as the leading software provider for the advertising world. We're a mid-sized company, as you can see, and we're really a global company since January anyway, when we acquired BCC Ad Systems in Australia. Now, our software is designed for the advertising industry. It supports media planning and buying activities across all media types. Now, that means if you're watching an episode, say, The Island with Bear Grylls, and a well-timed Strongbow cider commercial pops up in the ad break, chances are it's our software that has helped the advertising agency to decide that that's a good way to reach their target audience. And our software will have helped with all of the administration around that ad, from making the original booking with Channel 4 right through to the bill going off to Heineken. Our software helps agencies buy real estate in newspapers and magazines, at cinemas, on posters, on the radio, and of course the growing part of our business now is digital advertising. So MediaOcean really places a very high value on innovation, creativity and initiative, not only to respond to a complex and evolving market, but also to drive change and improve communication across the advertising industry. Here are a few of our customers. They're household names, I think, even for people who maybe don't have a direct connection with the advertising industry. And we deal with the big holding companies. WPP, I'm sure you've heard of, and you may have heard Martin Sorrell talking about his £70 million bonus on the Today programme this morning, which entertained me greatly. We also work with Omnicom, Publicis and Interpublic. And it's these big groups that really hold our feet to the fire in terms of demanding continually improving software as regards performance, usability and functionality. But they also have stringent requirements about availability and uptime. And they are the ones who have really started to ask the tough questions about our security and processing integrity procedures. And that's really been part of our landscape since Sarbanes-Oxley was passed in the US in 2002. And I really think this is where I face my greatest challenge as a compliance director in a technology company. In a complex, evolving industry, it's the innovators who succeed. If, as it says on our corporate intranet, we want to serve today's needs and tomorrow's demands by developing creative strategies and groundbreaking executions, how do we balance that with a need for control? If we're requiring people to stick to information security policies and procedures, are we stifling the impulses that could actually ensure our viability into the future? Certainly, some of the managers that I've worked with over the years have seen compliance as a straitjacket, which just prevents them from being able to respond and innovate. And so I've really seen it as a key part of my role to help management see that it doesn't have to be like that. In my view, well-designed IT security controls as part of an intelligent governance programme can enable the company to deliver innovation, but to do so safely. And in order for that to work, it's essential that the compliance programme must operate with the same level of flexibility and creativity that we expect of our development teams. And I'd just like to share a case study with you, really. This is a project that we've been working on over the past couple of years in the UK, and I think it illustrates some of these points. MediaOcean was appointed in 2014 to work on PATS, the Publisher Advertising Transaction System. And this was the idea of a group of local and national newspaper publishers in the UK. Now, it may come as no great surprise to you that this group had identified that traditional news media were under threat. And by the time they started working together on this project, most of the publications had already diversified into digital publishing. And they were starting to market themselves as news brands rather than just as newspapers. And that approach was already meeting with considerable success in terms of building and retaining readership. And I've just got a slide here with a few fun facts that that group of publications puts up on the website for you to see how that is working at the moment. But the group still realised that they needed to do more in order to defend the advertising revenue, which is absolutely critical for their viability going forward. And a breakthrough point for them was when they realised that their chief competition wasn't coming from the other news brands anymore. It was now coming from the new digital advertising channels, people like YouTube, Facebook, and Google. And they realised that what they needed to do was to work together to make advertising attractive and easy to buy in both their digital editions and in the paper publications. And it's hard to stress enough what a breakthrough this was, because for the first time in over 300 years of history, these newspapers were actually going to work together in order to develop a common interface, allowing advertising agencies to buy a standardised range of advertising formats across a portfolio of publications. The publishers group worked together for about 2 years before they put this project out to tender, and it was a further 7 months before MediaOcean won the contract in February 2014. And MediaOcean very quickly realised that not only did we need to deliver an innovative and intuitive product to a group of users who are really used to doing business over the phone, or preferably down the pub, to be honest, but also we need to work in a new way in order to really engage them and to make sure that we were taking all their requirements into account. And so from that point of view, I would say that the PATS project was the first at MediaOcean which really embraced the philosophy of agile development with its emphasis on user input at every stage. MediaOcean had previously been developing its software development methodology along agile lines, and we had teams working in scrums to evaluate and rank user stories, which were then assigned to fixed and timetable sprints and builds. Well, I probably don't need to tell this group of people that agile is generally pretty scary for compliance people. And at least one of the developers came and said to me, "This is great, we never need to write anything down again." I think he was trying to pull my leg. Anyway, some work needed to be done to work through that process and work out where is it important to keep records? Where do we need to document the details of those user stories? And where can we make our processes light and agile and flexible? So, for example, can we speed up the approvals process by just doing it in the Scrum directly? So those are the kinds of things that we had to work out at that stage. But the PATS project had the extra level of complexity. We now faced a security challenge as well. Up till that point, we'd really had two separate worlds of IT at MediaOcean. We had the client world, where we run our client-hosted services and we process their production data. And then we had the internal world as well, where we ran our own internal systems and development and test environments. And now we needed to punch a hole in the wall between those two worlds and let our clients in to help us develop this application. It wasn't an option to say, no, we can't do that. We needed to find a solution, even though it made our operations teams very nervous indeed. We had to step back and look again at how all of our security controls were configured. And the operations team were not happy to be tinkering around with firewalls, Active Directory and systems permissions, but that's what we needed to do. An interesting example is the ticketing system that we use to manage our user stories. We use a system called Jira, which is really designed to support agile development. And Jira is absolutely great for sharing and collaboration. not so good on security and permissions. So we really had to get to grips with that product properly to understand what all those options were about permissions and make sure that we were enabling our clients to come in and work with the project that they were supposed to be working on and share information with us. So our security control objective hadn't changed. We still wanted to be able to ensure that only authorised people were accessing our information assets. But just the definition of who those authorised people were had changed, and the way that we needed to implement our controls in order to give them access. Now, simply ditching the security controls certainly wasn't an option either. In fact, this group of news brands, with their need to protect their intellectual capital and their sources, have some of the most stringent corporate information security standards of any of the companies that we've partnered with over the years. And for example, the group commissioned their own web security assessment from a third party before they were happy to sign off the application, and it went live in autumn 2015. But I think what this really reflects is that we needed a governance programme which was flexible enough to be able to respond to new opportunities as well as to threats, so that we could allow our IT security controls to balance the need for innovation with the need for compliance. PATS is now in use by national news brands and allows them to work seamlessly with our client agencies. And as PATS is platform agnostic to the agency buying system, we now have a third-party system also integrating to PATS as well. It's been so successful within the UK that publishers in other markets have expressed an interest in the same solution. And I'd just like to close with a few thoughts on how we were able to make that happen. I think a lot of it was down to the 2.5 years that the publishers in that group spent working together and developing common ground and understanding each other before they even put the project out to tender. And I also think it's to do with the communication structures that the project team put in place to share user stories on a daily basis through to weekly technical calls with the publisher's own project managers, right up to C-level reviews of budgets and overall progress. And finally, I really think it's down to the relationships that have been built over the years at MediaOcean between development, operations and compliance. And I think those relationships and the communications channels are absolutely essential to allow security and compliance professionals to educate themselves about the needs of the business. And equally, for them to be able to help business understand why security matters and how it can work for them. Thank you very much indeed for your attention. I don't think we've got time for questions now, but
We